Millions of years ago, your ancestors had a tail, just like monkeys do today. But somewhere along the journey of evolution, humans lost it forever. Why would nature remove such a useful body part? Was it a random accident, or did losing our tails help us become the dominant species on Earth? And here's the most surprising fact of all. Even today, your body still carries the hidden evidence that your ancestors once had a tail. So what really happened? Let's travel millions of years into the past and uncover one of evolution's greatest mysteries. Take a moment and imagine yourself standing in front of a mirror. You see your face, your hands, your legs, but there's one thing missing that almost every other mammal on Earth has: a tail. It feels completely normal because humans have lived without tails for millions of years. But if you compare yourself to dogs, cats, monkeys, squirrels, or even tiny mice, you'll notice they all have one thing in common. Every one of them has a tail. For many animals, a tail is far more than just an extra body part. It helps them maintain balance while running at high speeds. It allows them to communicate with other members of their species. Some animals use it to scare away predators, while others rely on it to store fat or keep themselves warm. For monkeys living in trees, a tail is almost like an extra limb, helping them balance on thin branches high above the ground. So this raises a fascinating question. If tails are so useful, why don't humans have one? To answer that question, we have to travel back nearly 25 million years, long before the first humans ever walked on Earth. Back then, the world looked completely different. There were no cities, no roads, no buildings, only endless forests filled with strange animals and towering trees. Our distant ancestors weren't humans at all. They were ancient primates that spent almost their entire lives high in the forest canopy. Every day was a fight for survival. Food was limited. Predators were everywhere. And one wrong step could mean falling from a tree onto the forest floor below. That's where the tail became one of the most valuable tools an animal could have. It acted like a natural balancing pole, helping these early primates move safely across narrow branches. A strong tail meant better balance, quicker movement, and a greater chance of escaping danger. For millions of years, tails were essential for survival. Without them, life in the trees would have been much more dangerous. But evolution never stands still. Over countless generations, something remarkable began to happen. A small group of our ancient relatives slowly started living differently from monkeys. Instead of running across the tops of branches, they spent more time climbing tree trunks and hanging beneath branches using their long, powerful arms. This new way of moving changed everything. Scientists believe these ancient apes relied more on their shoulders, flexible hips, and strong arms than on their tails. Little by little, the tail became less important. And in evolution, when a body part is no longer essential for survival, nature doesn't always keep it. Every organ and every body part requires energy to grow. If a feature no longer provides a major advantage, small genetic changes can slowly reduce it over thousands, even millions, of generations. This wasn't something that happened overnight. No single ape suddenly woke up without a tail. Instead, generation after generation, tails became slightly shorter. Individuals with shorter tails survived just as well as those with longer ones. Over millions of years, those tiny changes added up until one day, our ancestors no longer had visible tails at all. It wasn't planned. It wasn't a choice. It was simply evolution at work. But this is where the mystery becomes even more fascinating. Changing the way our ancestors moved explains only part of the story. Recently, scientists discovered that the real answer may be hidden much deeper inside our DNA. A tiny genetic mutation that happened millions of years ago may have completely changed the future of every ape and every human that would come after. Could one small change in our genes really erase a body part that had existed for hundreds of millions of years? And if humans truly lost their tails, then why do we still have a tailbone at the bottom of our spine today? The answer is even more surprising than you might imagine. So, if changing the way our ancestors moved was only part of the story, what completed the puzzle? The answer was hidden inside something so small that no one could see it for millions of years: our DNA. Every living creature is built using genetic instructions stored inside its cells. These instructions decide everything, from the color of your eyes to the shape of your body. They also control how an embryo develops before birth. When scientists compared the DNA of humans, chimpanzees, gorillas, and monkeys, they discovered something extraordinary. Millions of years ago, one tiny mutation occurred in a gene called TBXD, a gene responsible for forming the tail during early development. This mutation changed the way embryos grew. Instead of developing a long, flexible tail, the embryo stopped growing it very early. The result? Only a few small bones remained at the bottom of the spine. Those bones are still inside your body today. We call them the tailbone, or coccyx. Although it no longer looks like a tail, it serves as powerful evidence that our ancestors once had one. But here's something even more fascinating. Evolution doesn't happen because nature has a plan. Mutations happen completely by chance. Most of them disappear because they provide no advantage. But sometimes, a mutation helps a species survive better than before. If that happens, the mutation spreads through future generations. Scientists believe that's exactly what happened with our ancestors. As early apes relied more on climbing with powerful arms and, later, on walking upright, having a long tail was no longer necessary. In fact, some researchers think a large tail may have even made certain movements more difficult. Without the need for balance in the same way as tree-running monkeys, losing the tail had little or no disadvantage. Over millions of years, every new generation inherited the shorter tail trait until it became permanent. Today, every human, chimpanzee, gorilla, and orangutan belongs to a group called apes, and unlike monkeys, apes don't have external tails. But if humans don't have tails anymore, then why are some babies born with one? It sounds unbelievable, but it's true. Very rarely, a baby is born with a small tail-like structure. This condition is extremely uncommon. In most cases, it isn't a fully functional tail with bones like those of monkeys. Instead, it's made of soft tissue, skin, fat, and sometimes muscle. Doctors call it a vestigial tail, meaning it's a leftover feature from our evolutionary past. These rare cases remind scientists that the genetic instructions for building a tail haven't completely disappeared. They're simply switched off during normal human development. It's almost like an old chapter of evolution that's still hidden inside our DNA. Now imagine something incredible. What if humans had never lost their tails? Life today would probably look very different. Chairs would need a completely different design. Cars and airplane seats would have openings for our tails. Clothing companies would make jeans and trousers with a special tail hole. Sports like gymnastics, climbing, and even parkour might become much easier because a tail could help with balance. Our body language would change too. Just as dogs wag their tails to show happiness or fear, humans might express emotions without saying a single word. A happy tail, an angry tail, a nervous tail. It could completely transform the way we communicate. But despite how useful that sounds, evolution chose a different path. Instead of keeping a tail, our ancestors developed stronger legs, flexible hips, better balance, and eventually the ability to walk upright over long distances. Those changes freed our hands to carry food, create tools, build shelters, and shape the world around us. In a way, losing our tails was one small step that helped make us human. So, the next time someone asks why humans don't have tails, remember, it's not because we never had them. It's because evolution slowly rewrote our story over millions of years. Our tails disappeared, but they were never truly erased. They still exist as a tiny tailbone hidden beneath your spine and as ancient instructions quietly stored inside your DNA. They are silent reminders of a time when your ancestors lived high in the trees, balancing on branches, long before the first human ever walked the earth. And perhaps that's the most fascinating part of all. Sometimes, the greatest clues about who we are hidden inside the parts of us we can no longer see. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through human evolution, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. What evolutionary mystery should we explore next?